Yeah, let's go to third round. Neville Gallimore, drafted once again by our Dallas Cowboys, which means that we could quite literally end up with the interior defense being Oklahoma-made. Gerald McCoy and Neville Gallimore as defensive tackles would make me so very giddy. But that also means that it's just a glaring hole that Oklahoma needs to fill that Gallimore was really good with last year. And there's lots of different candidates for this job. I mean, the two JUCOs and Perion Winfrey and Josh Ellison, but also Jalen Redmond, who is projected first-round pick next year by some, and of course LaRon Stokes, who was Defensive Player of the Year in the Newcomer of the Year in the Big 12. And then I think there's a couple other guys down on the depth chart like Marcus Hicks that I would really expect to get some run.
Yeah, it's a very intriguing group. I think at the end of it all, you're kind of going to have to lean on some of those more experienced guys to fill that role early and often. I have said on record that I am hoping LaRon Stokes takes that next step because, okay, you went from nothing to the Big 12 Newcomer of the Year defensively. Now, what do you do from there? Can you go from newcomer to maybe an all Big 12 second team? Because if you get to that accomplishment, that's all you can really ask of out of this guy. And Gallimore leaving, to me, is bigger than just the spot. This dude was allowed in his final season to just penetrate in that one-gap scheme and go. And as a result, it forced offensive linemen to double-team him and account for him wherever he lined up, which, in my opinion, is one of the main reasons why a talent like Ronnie Perkins was able to see one-on-one matchups fairly frequently. And it's also one of the main reasons why a guy like John Michael Terry was also just able to see those frequent one-on-one matchups and really excel before he suffered that injury. Nick Benito, David Uwebu, so on and so forth. But the bottom line here is that Gallimore, in my opinion, really opened things up for the other guys on the defensive line. And who's going to be able to do that? In my opinion, it's hard to see a number one candidate here. I think Stokes is probably the guy you favor, but I also would want to bring up that guys like Perion Winfrey or Josh Ellison, dudes that rank as the number one, number two defensive tackles in JUCO, according to 24/7 Sports Composite, they came in measured a little bit slighter than what they were listed beforehand. So that is also something that I'm keeping track of because, as we know, Gallimore's a big boy with freak athleticism, and if you're going to fill his spot, you got to have a similar skill set. So for those reasons, I think I would lean Stokes here as maybe the standout candidate to fill, Perion, Josh, and then the others to follow suit. It's just fascinating how the interior defensive line will eventually shape up.
Yeah, my dark horse here is still Marcus Hicks. He had hamstring issues, put on a lot of weight very quickly. Body wasn't ready to hold it up. A year later, he is still one of the most athletic players on the entire team. Heavyweight wrestling state champion and tremendous speed and get off. When he was being projected as an end, I was bullish, but as a defensive tackle, I think especially as a three technique, he could be outstanding. I really think that he could show some things to lead you to believe that he's the next first round pick on that defense. I want to go from that to Parnell Motley's spot. I know he's undrafted, but it was he who I thought was the best defensive back playing last year for Alex Grinch among all of them. I mean, Parnell Motley puts the shackles on Jalen Reagor, puts the shackles on Denzel Mims, put the shackles on Jamar Chase, can't get drafted. All right, so that guy needs to get replaced. Trey Brown, we know his spot is his, but with Trey Norwood coming back and Jaden Davis really showing that he could do this through the first half of the season last year, what do you think? Who do you think ends up taking that spot left vacant by Parnell Motley?
I'm fascinated by this potential battle because I think, like you said, we saw a lot of people give Jaden Davis slack because of what he did in the second half of the season, but I think that was just to be expected with any true freshman having to play as much as he did. I think in the first half, like you're mentioning, he was pretty good, and they asked him to not only line up at corner, but he lined up in the nickel spot. He lined up as that dime guy. He was all over the field, and I think he's learned a lot, and for that reason, I think he's a very strong contender to fill that role. However, we all know that I'm a big Trey Norwood guy. I just think that this dude can do it all and can do it all for good reason. I mean, depending on how much you put stock into PFF numbers, I won't say it enough. He was one of the top cornerbacks in the nation on third down when he was playing, and that's the money down, in my opinion. You got to make a living on stopping passing opportunities on third down. And for that reason, if I'm knowing that on a third down situation, I got to make sure that the number one wide receiver does not get the ball in his hands, I'm trusting Trey Norwood out of all those guys. So I think for that reason, I think you're going to see Norwood probably take the spot early on. Then I think Jaden Davis can substitute or maybe even continue to play that dime role, which I think is incredibly valuable in the Big 12 Conference. And so while these two will battle whenever we get football back, I just know that Norwood is a guy that has a massive chip on his shoulder. He has the talent to play it. I think he's also constantly been involved in those meeting rooms and situations, even when he was injured. And so for that reason, I have him as the top contender to fill that position.
His versatility cannot be overstated. That's one of the strongest arguments for Trey Norwood on the football field. He can play free. He can play strong. He can play corner. He was in this really weird Ruffin McNeil 3-safety defense. He was a guy that had, I want to say, the field third, but it was weird, but it's still something he can add. And coming out of Fort Smith, Arkansas, he's already overachieved for me, and I would not be at all shocked to see him lock up one of these starting positions, or if you get the luxury of using him as a dime back, absolutely. Before we get out of here, I thought this was a fun question. Maybe you'll think it's a fun question. Which player is most likely to show up out of shape? Just hasn't done anything whatsoever.
Dang, you're going to put me on the spot like that.
Yeah, just been on the James Grim Reaper Roper diet.
That's brutal. I would say I'm going to the offensive line if I have to.
Okay.
And, I mean, it depends on how much you think that they're going to eat. Because, like, in my opinion, if Bray Walker does not have a massive amount of weights next to him, a mountain of a man like that's going to be consuming an incredible amount of calories. So I don't think he'll be necessarily out of shape, but I mean, that dude's probably knocking out a few pizzas in his free time, right?
I would think so. I'm going to go with Spence Jones. What do you do, man? You hold the ball. You hold the ball. No, nobody cares if the place kick holder is out of shape. You know, it's one of the coolest and like xylophony jobs of all time in football. And I get that my man thinks of himself as a wide receiver. I would show up much more looking like a tight end, going, what are you going to do? Ask me not to run routes? Come on. I catch the snap. I put the snap down. The guy kicks the extra point. What do you want from me? You know, like that's where I think this was getting fun for me. It's like, what job on a football field would it really not matter for me to be in shape? Because we notice a punter, but you don't need to be in shape. So, like, you know, if Munchau wanted to show up an extra 40 pounds overweight, can still punt the ball and keep his flexibility, fine. If Gabe Burkich wanted to get his Sebastian Janikowski on, I think we'd all be okay with that. That'd be fine. You're the kicker. But as the place kick holder, we don't care if you show up looking like a bowling ball. Just, you know, catch the snap. Put the snap down. Laces out. I think that's where I was going. I wasn't trying to make you talk about one of these kids in a piss poor way.
I'm just sitting here like, I mean, I got no rhyme or reason to talk. I know I got to get back on my routine ASAP because I'm about to be out of shape as heck once we start football season. I got to roam around on that field. I know that for sure. But no, it's going to be fascinating. I mean, everything that I can account from what I've heard, I mean, these guys have really taken to this weird situation and they've been working really hard. I'm sure everyone that we're talking about and more have really put the time into to do what they want to do this season. And I think it's been fascinating to follow these guys. They put it out on social media, what they're doing to make sure they stay in shape. But I know I got to make sure that I'm following too because I got no room to talk at this moment.
My man has got the peach bluebell out.
Oh, dude, it's dangerous. It's top 2 ice creams and it ain't number 2.
My man. That's Colin Kennedy. Follow him on the Twitters at ckennedy247. I have deleted my Twitter account. Thanks, y'all. Subscribe, rate it 5 stars. We'll see you next week.